Hey, Gwen.
Hello.
I think Mo is coming in any minute now, but the doctor is in. The doctor is in. We're so glad to have you today. Mo just sort of came into the picture. I guess she's coming in. Hey, Mo. We just went live. Hey, Mo, we just went live. The doctor
Oh,
is in.
Hello.
hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Excellent. Good to see all your smiling faces. You look beautiful.
Yeah, we're here. And so this is my new friend, Gwen, who I adopted from Val.
I love it. I
And
love it.
and she is a grief counselor, her and her hubby.
Yes.
And she is a badass, as all of our.
Mhm.
And I'm so excited to have her on today to talk about grief. And
Yeah.
I asked her to focus on the grief of cancer.
Yeah.
So and you know, we had our TNBC group last night, and we're talking about all the things you lose, right?
Mhm.
I've heard women lately talk about a mastectomy as an amputation.
Yeah.
I lost my hair. I lost my breast. I lost my my life. I lost a year of my life. I
Mhm.
lost my partner.
Hmm.
I lost my husband. I lost my wife. Like all these things happen that affect us, and we go through grief,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
right? Think about it. You go into mourning. I talked to a breastie today. She just finished her chemo, and she's still freaking out over losing her hair. She's still really, really upset about her hair loss.
Hmm.
But there's so many things that we don't even realize we're attached to, but we're attached to our lives.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, you get that disease, that C word comes, and you start to like things to just start to come. You lose them, go pull out of your life. Whether it's like and I think it's like this loss of control. Well, you know how I describe it. You get put in the dark. It's like somebody
Yeah.
in a big room full of stuff, and they turn the light off, and then you're like, "Well, how do I get out of here?" And you're
Yeah.
stumbling over things, and you're bumping into things, and you're just looking for some light. You're
Mhm.
waiting for a hand for something to grab you, but then you feel like even when you turn light on, you wake up and everything's gone.
Yeah.
There's the how do I say it? I think it's such an important topic because one, there's not enough research on it, right? There is some research surrounding grief, especially from the breast cancer experience.
Mhm.
Mainly, it's sort of with the spin of how can we use palliative care to palliate grief and to help
Right.
people through that. Some of the studies look at people who are, metastatic and other things, but in general, we give out at cancer centers these distress scores, right? And you get this little thermometer. How stressed are you? And depending on when you give it to somebody, you get a different response. And number two, is that really an accurate measurement of anything, right? Are you
Yeah.
measuring anything? And the grief comes in phases and waves. And I think that having this conversation is going to give a lot of people a lot of tools to be able to talk about it, to ask for the resources they need, and then to maybe bring it up again. It's going to
Mhm.
help people watching from family members and support staff, supportive community standpoint of being able to bring it up. Could you be depressed? Maybe are you grieving a little bit? You seem a little snippy. Are you, can we talk about these things? And so, Gwen, I want you to introduce yourself and talk to us about, how you what's your why? I always start there. What's your why?
I'm Gwendolyn Jones. I am a grief recovery specialist, and that's a powerful question. What is my why? And it is that I have now lost both of my parents. I am 41 years old to colon cancer. When my mother passed away, um, of course, she passed away a while ago and I was much younger, but there were no tools. There was no how to, there's no 1, 2, 3. I'm sure there was nothing to help me get through it. There was no, I don't want to say definitive because there is a definition for grief, but it's an intellectual definition. when we talk about grief and grief recovery, grief is a matter of the heart. And everything I was reading was an intellectual answer. And when you try to heal a heart issue with a tool that's created for intellect, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Well,
So when
say that again, say that again. That, and Val's coming on with us. She's like itching to come on. She's coming on. But yeah, say that again. Grief is a matter of the heart.
it is a matter of the heart. Grief is a heart issue. And when you are trying to cure a heart issue with intellectual tools, it's like trying to paint a wall with a hammer. We don't have the right tools to deal with grief.
Ooh-wee. That's
Powerful thing that we say all the time is that society, our families, our culture, they teach us how to acquire things, but they don't teach us what to do when we lose them. So when I lost my mom and my father just passed away in December, I mean, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle it. And the tools that I went with were all intellectual because that's a generational thing that I was taught. Tools like, we call them myths in grief recovery, be strong. So I initially go into be strong. That's big with us, especially culturally. But how do you even do that? What does that even look like? And what are the benefits of being strong for someone else? What we're doing is we're actually teaching our children and demonstrating for other people that watch us that having emotion is not okay, that we're not allowed to embrace the entire spectrum of emotions, that happy and sad, happy and joyful, that's the only part of the spectrum that we can entertain. We're taught to stuff the sad, angry, mad. I think you were talking about that earlier, Ricky. We're taught to stuff that. We're not taught to consider it. We're not taught to process it. It's not even supposed to exist. So then these things build. But anyway, that's why I love this. I can go on, so I don't want to. So to have these tools to be able to give them to other people, I love it because I didn't have them. They helped me. So now I get to pay it forward.
this is your show, first of all. Second of all,
Yeah, you can talk all you want. We will be.
yes,
all in.
yes, you can. I want to talk about how does one become a grief recovery specialist, and what does that look like? Like, what did that journey look like after grief that led you to this place? Because I heard what you're saying about how it motivated you to do it, but then how did you actually do it?
Yeah, so the Grief Recovery Institute is an international institute, and John James is one of the founders of the Grief Recovery Institute, and they actually have a handbook. So John James and Russell Friedman actually founded it, and it's amazing because the whole institute was founded years ago by a griever. He lost his son. I think his son was a few months old or a few weeks old when he died, and he could not move past it, and he was stuck. And he just could not figure out what it was that was keeping him stuck. So he tried it. He read every book, went to every therapist, did all he could do at that time, all the tools available to him. But again, it was all intellectual stuff. And he realized that it was his heart that was broken. He also realized, here I go again, that there was hopes, dreams, and expectations attached to the birth of that child that were never going to manifest. That's what his heart couldn't get past. When you talk about loss, Ricky, and what when there's a cancer diagnosis and things of that nature, not only do we have relationships with our health, right, and our bodies, that whole thing changes. So that's a grief, but there's levels to this thing because there's hopes, dreams, and expectations that we had, for our lives that we now fear will not come to pass, or depending on, again, the diagnosis, that may not come to pass. So dealing with and processing that part of it, but that's the stuff nobody ever tells us. That's the stuff nobody teaches us. So how can we process something that we don't even know what it is? To answer your question again, it is a certification. So this institute is international. They have offices in Africa, anywhere you can think of. And so John, when he figured out what was going on, he wrote this book. He called it The Grief Recovery Method. He wrote the book, then he started the institute, and the institute trains specialists because we needed to, our motto, our goal is to reach the largest amount of grievers in the shortest amount of time. The easiest way to do that is to train specialists, train them all over the world and send them out into the field. Because of course their reach will only go so far. So it is for me, it's a 5-day certification. And 5 days from 9 to 5, we just sat in a We sat in a hotel room and we learned this method, and we actually went through this process ourselves before we go and teach it to other people. I also have a master's degree in human services counseling and concentration, especially in marriage and family.
You
Wow.
threw that in at the end, girl.
No, I
Listen.
know, right, right,
Here
right.
we go, by the way.
By the way.
Wow.
Well, it's this whole like, do I remain humble? Do I bring it up? But I also wanted to make sure that you asked me the questions, I want to answer it.
Yep, we want to know. Val, how you doing?
Hey, Miss
I'm good.
Val.
I am good. This grief thing is real.
Yeah.
It is.
And I think we don't give it its due address because our community, African Americans, we don't give permission to
Yes,
grieve.
yes.
You know, and if we don't give permission, people hide it.
Mhm.
You know, or if we get permission, it has to take only 5 days and then you got to be better. You
Gotta
know
Look
what
a
I'm
certain
saying?
way, sound a certain way, right, Val? You know?
Exactly, Dr. Mo.
Hmm.
And so we struggle. And so 5 years after diagnosis, you see someone in a corner crying and you're like, what's going on? Well, they never processed it all. They didn't get an opportunity to grieve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And grief, by our definition of grief, is the normal and natural reaction to loss of any kind. But it's also the conflicting feelings that are caused by the end of or change in any familiar pattern of behavior. So when you can put language, on what I'm
Familiar
feeling,
pattern of behavior. Gosh.
yeah, when people don't have language to surround what's happening while they grieve, while they're grieving. There's no language. So what this process does, and what I love about it, is it gives people language. I'm not crazy because this is what's happening to me. So I'll give that definition again. Conflicting feelings caused by the end of or change in any familiar pattern of behavior. Think about when your favorite TV show go off. You watch this show every Thursday at
I'm
5.
on. Yeah.
Like, you are ready because you know your show is coming on. So the season's up, the show's no longer coming. How do
Yeah.
you feel?
That happens
like,
every time I finish Bridgerton. It
I
happens.
was just going to say that. I hate it when it ended.
Yeah.
So then the next part of that, though, Gwen, is that it sounds like then grief is a natural. It's natural.
Normal and natural. Normalizing grief is what is my why? That's 80% of it. To normalize that it's okay to grieve. It's okay to cry, because they teach us not to cry. They teach us one of our big myths is don't feel bad. Why not? It's a normal and natural emotion. So the fact that feeling sad, feeling bad, first of all, normalizing that it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first step in really get to know yourselves. Because think about it. Do we know our true selves if we aren't even allowed to experience that part of us? The sad parts, the angry parts. If we're all the a sum of many, many parts, but we only are allowed to explore or present, what would you say? 10% of our true selves?
Yeah.
At best, you know.
Well,
Absolutely.
When you said something to me interesting when we talked earlier, when that, automatically when a baby starts crying,
Oh, yeah.
immediately pick the baby up, pat on it's okay.
Yeah.
Hush, 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 be quiet. So we dispel, or what's the word, dismiss crying
Yes.
of a baby instantly.
Yeah.
Or just, to say crying is not okay.
That's right.
Yeah, it's taught early, and it's interesting because we're taught not to explore. We're taught to make the crying stop by any means necessary. We're not taught to explore, to understand what's behind the tears, what are the tears about. We're not taught to communicate through the tears, right? The crying is just, we're not taught to communicate what our why is because it stops so quickly. It's halted.
So let me ask you this then. How do you reconcile? Because I agree with you. I think we soothe babies. We're taught to try to figure out, we placate with food, which is a source of a lot of obesity, addiction. There's a lot of harm comes out of the inability to feel or to allow somebody to feel. How do we reconcile that though with this strong Black woman trope and the true need to be the pillars of strength in our family, not just the trope, but the fact that many of
Yeah.
us are, right? Like
Yeah.
how does this training
Mm.
reconcile those things, and what do you replace that with so that you're not just left with grief?
Yeah, so we need emotional leaders. When I was watching my mother suffer through cancer, she was so strong. And although I admire that. It really would have been nice if if it could have been a situation where it was, you know what, baby, I'm scared. Like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take it one day at a time. But I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm sad because I really thought I was gonna be able to do X, Y, and Z. I'm really sad that I have to go to chemo instead of, to my grandchild's prom or to go to a wedding.
Mhm.
You know, I'm upset that this treatment, kind of has kept me out here. I'm confined. I feel confined. I feel a little bit helpless. I feel it's called emotional honesty. And that's what we teach.
Yeah.
And nobody teaches us how to do that. And really, when we do it, people don't know what to do with it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, thinking about, and I am not a crier. I don't know where it came
Yeah.
from. If I cry, something's really bad.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to make me cry. I don't, and I'm always the one, it's gonna be okay. I'm always been keeping everybody else from crying.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I used to always say, no crying, there's no crying in baseball. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't remember, I can remember crying maybe, I don't know, all on one hand when I was sick.
Yeah.
Like I didn't do what you just said. I didn't say, I think at some point I said, I'm mad, but I never let myself grieve when I was sick because I was so worried about how everybody else was dealing with it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't want that in front of them because I wanted them to see that I was in this fight that I was going to win. And
Yeah.
I did believe
Sure.
it. I
Yeah.
did believe that. I believed I was going to win the fight. Even
Yeah.
my doctor
Yeah.
said you're going to die. So I had a really positive attitude about it, but I didn't let myself feel bad.
Well, Ricky,
Mhm.
don't you think though that sometimes we define strength in ways that it's difficult to even live up to the definition? So I remember
Yes, indeed.
when I was taking chemo and the oncologist said, you're going to lose your hair after the second cycle.
Right.
I was so determined that I was going to keep my hair because I thought that's what strength was. I was going to keep my hair past the second cycle. That's all I focused on was keeping my hair. And and it was falling out and all that. But if I had just one strand, then I felt like that's where my strength was.
Yeah.
Years later, I discovered that the strength was me deciding when I was going to go to my hairdresser and say, cut it off, not me looking at every strand. I didn't know what strength looked like.
You preaching.
I didn't know.
And
So I was holding on to something that did not define me nor my strength. Wasted energy, but I didn't know. And nobody told me that.
Right.
Yeah, nobody talked to me about that tears may be a sign of strength. That saying, I'm afraid, that may be a sign of strength. We define it. Don't you think, Dr. Mo? I mean, when you think about it, yeah.
And you know what I was gonna say is that, Val, I want to ask Gwen about anticipatory grief, because I feel like you were anticipating that hair loss, and there are a lot of people who anticipate what they're going to grieve from their cancer journey, and they don't go down the road.
Yeah.
And I think it paralyzes and cripples people because
Absolutely.
they're already anticipating. How do we navigate through that? Because it's like knowing you're going to get nauseous, right? Knowing you're going to be sick,
Right.
and so you try to do everything you can to not get sick. But guess what? You got to go through the through.
Right.
So Gwen, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I love what you said about anticipatory grief. It's so true. But I also wanted to speak on living out another's experience. I feel like those two complement each other. because with the anticipatory grief is what you've seen, what you've heard,
Mhm.
and a little bit of what you know. But we've got 2 survivors here, so you guys tell me if this is true for you. All experiences are unique. There are some symptoms that are common for most treatments. I'm no expert on chemo, I'm not a doctor, but at the same time, each patient's experience, each patient's grieving process is unique.
Every journey.
Mhm.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
when you have that anticipatory grief, you are basically living out someone else's experience. You're living out what you've seen, but it's not
Right.
your experience. You may not even have that same experience. So you're not even giving yourself opportunity to
Oh,
walk
God,
your own
no.
journey.
Mm,
Yeah.
you
And
got that right.
you're
Yeah.
taking that away from yourself. When I
Right.
was pregnant with my first child, now I went to college, got married super young. And so I'm pretty young. I'm 21, I believe. I got married right out of college. So I'm
Mhm.
21, I'm pregnant, and I don't know what to expect. I'm terrified because I've heard the horror stories, right? And everybody wants to tell me, well, when I had it, well, when it happened to me, or I get it because I've been there. But
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the thing we got to get away from, because
Mhm.
you haven't been there, because you're not me.
Mhm.
You're not my body. You have my lived experiences. So I literally had to shut it off. I wasn't
Yeah.
watching the TV. I wasn't watching the documentaries because I wanted to have my own experience.
That's
And
right.
so you have your support group, you have your circle when you're going through these things. But when you're dealing with a diagnosis or something like that, you really do need to know and hold on to the fact that this is my journey.
Mhm.
My journey and story may or may not be like yours, but let
That's
me
right.
walk it out one day at a time, one moment at a time if I have to, and have my
Mhm.
own lived experience.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think
Because
the
you
other
hear
thing, go ahead, Al.
you hear people even that get divorced,
Yeah,
and like within 3 to 6 months they're ready to get married again.
yeah,
It's this fear, of being lonely, because they have heard other people say it's a lonely place to be, and so we don't even allow ourselves to make informed decisions
yeah,
because we're so fearful of what might happen, that we run to that thing that is going to be, that we think is going to give us comfort, when really it's that Band-Aid over a gaping wound. And that doesn't work.
You know where I see that, Val? Clinical trials.
Wow.
There's something so positive about the messaging that When We Trial has done, because it replaces I watched my mother go through chemo, I watched my
yeah,
sister get chemo, I watched my this, to see somebody that says, I went through a clinical trial and it saved my life. And it gives
Right.
us something different to
yeah.
anticipate it. It writes a different story for you to sort of pre-think about.
I love
Um, yeah, and that is, I
Excellent.
think, the power of storytelling and of these
it.
narratives. Because when, like I did, we watched our mothers die of this disease,
Yeah,
right? Like my mother
yeah,
died of ovarian cancer. She was
right,
young and scared and didn't make it to
yeah,
30.
yeah,
It's when you see those things, it imprints on you,
it does.
and you don't want to go through that, and you don't want to entertain anything down that road. But yet here we are as Black women, faced with this astronomical rate of morbidity associated with breast cancer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
We had a
true. And
we had a breastie recently who was diagnosed triple negative stage 1, and for whatever reason she did her own research and she decided not to do chemo.
Mm.
So she did radiation and lumpectomy, and she basically said, I felt like I was doing my research. I used Google, I found what I found, and it didn't seem of value to me. Well, now a year later, it's back in her
Yes,
lymph node,
yeah.
and I could see in her thinking that she was feeling lost
Mm.
on her own decision.
Yeah,
I mean, like, what did I lose? What did I do? What? So it was like, to me, when I was thinking about it, she's having grief right now because
Yep.
she sort of brought this on herself. It was horrible. It was horrible disease.
yeah,
Right.
You know what happens with this disease, but like, first of all, what doctor let her do that? I'm ready.
Patients do. I'm telling you,
They
they walk
do.
out.
That's
And you know
right.
what I do, Ricky? I challenge them before you leave. I need you to sit here and go down this road with me. And I need you to tell me how you're going to feel a year from now if this comes back. because there's no predicting, and we do everything. We're going to hedge our bets. You're young. We're going to do, what we can do. But if you don't take that road and it comes back, how are you going to feel? You're going to be like, well, I'll deal with it when it comes, or you're going to be kicking yourself saying, you know what, I should have just tried that pill. I should have just did that radiation. I should have done the things, because at least then you have said, well, I did everything I could do to prevent it. And it takes some of that guilt off of you. And that
That
changes a
guilt
lot of people's minds.
Yes.
that guilt is grief, right?
It is.
That guilt she's feeling. The other thing too, and we can talk about all these things, is we have another, and I just talk to breasties all day.
Yeah.
That's what I do. That's my life. It's my purpose, I know. But we have breastie 45, never married, lost 2 babies, had miscarriages, and she's metastatic, and she's mad. She's
Can we
mad.
talk about that? The grief is something you can't
Yeah.
get back, like fertility, right? You can't get it
Right.
back. It's gone. That's a different grief even in hair.
Yeah.
It is.
Right? She's mad about these babies. She's mad about she can't go out. She's mad that she's sick,
Yeah.
and she's scared. She has brain meds. Like, she's mad, and you can see it in the anger. I don't know how to help her, because she's got to figure it out for herself in a lot of ways. I mean, I think she's got the point where at some point we all have to accept our mortality.
Yeah.
We're all going to die. Nobody's going to leave this, we're all going to leave this place at some point.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I think, like, what am I being cheated of because I'm 45 and I didn't have any, I don't have any kids. I don't have, like, what do I have? I think is her question. You know what I mean? But it's really hard to get people peace with that. So that's something. And here's my third thing, and then I'll shut up. So how you learn that there are phases of grief? Do you believe in that theory?
There's
that-
what?
Phases of grief. So first,
Yeah. Yeah.
grief, whatever, but you come to you eventually. I don't know what the phases are, but you
Like
eventually.
the stages.
Is that true? Is that real?
I don't know. You want to go first, doctor? You want me?
No, you're the grief expert here. So I
Yeah.
think you should talk about it from your level of lived experience and also training.
Yeah.
As it relates to the stages of grief, we definitely we feel that the stages of grief are real. We do not believe that they are linear.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my
Not
God.
necessarily-
That's the thing that gets
Can
me.
you tell what those stages are? And you don't have to like say it. I mean, I know that we'll say them in sequence, but tell us then what you mean by how they're
Yeah.
not linear.
Oh, yeah. So the fact that they're not linear. So people feel like we have to be in a certain stage. I believe there's denial, and the ultimate stage is acceptance. I think
Can you go through them? Can you go
it's the
through
stage.
denial? Then what's anger? what else?
Anger.
Anger. I'm gonna have to Google them.
Denial, anger.
I'll Google them. I'll Google
You
them.
got it? Yeah.
Is it bargaining in there?
Mm,
And
That's
acceptance is the final
5 of them: denial, anger, bargaining, depression.
person, and then acceptance. Yeah.
Yep.
So the thing for us is that you won't be in a certain stage at a certain amount of time.
Right.
Because we, as grief recovery specialists, we teach that time does not heal all wounds. One of that's a myth. Right?
Mhm.
I have ladies that I speak with, and there's a grief event that happened 20, 50 years ago. They feel it like it happened 5 minutes ago.
Yep.
So it's
Oh
those
my God.
actions that you take that
Yeah.
heal. It doesn't just disappear. Doesn't just
Doesn't just disappear.
So the fact that we are confined to a certain stage of as it relates to the stages of grief, the misconception is not that you don't have them, but the misconception is that you have to be in a certain stage for a certain amount of time, and that is some type of sequential situation. It could be circular. It could be a roller coaster. You
It could last
at
years.
one-
It could last years.
You could be,
Right.
especially if you're not getting help, and especially if you're going into this with the mindset that, society, the incorrect tools that society has teaches us as it surrounds these stages, that if you're just stuffing it, if you just need to just let it get time, or if you just need to keep busy, these are some of the myths that we, so if you're doing that, you're never dealing and processing it. So no matter what you do to run from it or replace the loss is another myth, it's going to be there.
Yeah.
So
How do you know? How do you know then if you're stuck? What if you just think this is good as it gets? You know, and you're living a melancholy life, and you're like, well, it was cancer, and I grieve the loss of my whatever. How do you know there's something beyond that for you?
yeah, I feel like that's a decision that you have to make. It really comes down to the fact of, so me, again, 41 years old, no parents, no parents or grandparents, mind you.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I feel like that's cruel. I feel like that's just, unfair. Mother's Day is around the corner. I have to
Mhm.
process that. It's a celebratory day for some it's not, and so, I mean, to answer your question, I'm not in any particular stage. And we also have to consider, like triggers. Like I have
Mhm.
days where I am at a place of acceptance, you know, and I have moments where my parents aren't in pain anymore. My parents aren't hooked to a machine for 8 hours a day, 3 times a week anymore, you know. But at the same time, I will say personally, I do have also a moment where it's like I just had my 41st birthday, 41st birthday. I'm in the Bahamas on a cruise, living my life, but my parents weren't there.
You miss your mama. Yeah,
Mm.
every phase.
It's my first birthday without my father. This is what I call the year of first. This is my year
Yeah.
of first Father's Day, first birthday, first Christmas, So that's a trigger for me, right? So it's not that I'm going backwards, because the thing behind the stage is the mindset, right? So it's the thing that nothing's wrong with you if you aren't in a certain place at a certain time. It's normalizing that it's okay to have your moments. And then when you have the moment, right? What do you do? What are the tools that you do? Instead of trying to drink it away, we call those STIRs, short-term energy relieving behaviors. Instead of trying to stop it away, instead of trying to eat it away, because a lot of us are taught to replace the loss with food, as you say. I choose to write a letter, or I choose to light a candle. When it's my mother's birthday, both my parents died in December, right before Christmas. And for me, something about lighting a candle, it kind of causes me to acknowledge and commemorate them, finding ways and finding joy amidst these catastrophic situations is a decision that you have to make. It's a mindset and a choice.
But you have to make a decision though to get peace,
Right.
And you have to decide, I want to be peaceful about this, because we have another friend, and her mom died in August, and her mom died fast, made
Yeah.
off, and she never got past anger. She
Yeah.
never got past denial.
Yeah.
She never accepted that her 89-year-old mother was going to die of colon cancer.
Yeah.
Because she'd been living with her mother her whole life, never lived with her whole life, she's in her 60s, and she never believed it. And so when her mother died, she couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
She's like, what happened?
Yeah.
I was here 2 hours ago. And it was almost like the mother waited for her to leave the room, the hospital, to die.
She
Yeah.
probably did. She probably did.
That's
Yeah.
right.
You hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
But she's still angry because she felt like she had no control over the situation, and she never grasped it. She never held it in her mind that her mother was going to die.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And anger becomes a prison.
Yeah.
And a cancer.
It
And
does.
Literally
Yeah,
and
it will
figuratively.
manifest biologically. You're so right. It will
Yeah.
manifest so many different ways. And but anger, the thing with anger is that we feel it, but we don't learn from it.
Mm.
We're not
What did you say
exposed.
anger was just now? I'm going to put that in the comment. Anger is a what?
They can be prison. Is
Oh,
that what-
she said it's a
Anger is
prison.
a
I said, and a cancer, literally and
cancer.
figuratively. It is.
It is, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so let's talk about this though. With you don't learn from it, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah. So when we're angry, it's such a powerful emotion. We kind of, and I want to say this carefully and empathetically, but we don't really consider, okay, we know the why am I angry, right? Like you said, she's angry. I think you said one of your friends was because she has cancer, she hasn't had children yet, right? So then another one, she's angry, but because her mother passed and she felt like she couldn't. So there was a loss of control there. But when we look at anger, if we can get beneath the surface and dig around into it, what we're doing is there's what we call in grief recovery, there's something in addition to the hopes, dreams, and expectations attached to whatever you've lost. There's that you have to deal with. Then there's also things that we wish that we had done differently, better, or more. And that
Yeah.
right there, it's called
Ooh-wee.
unresolved grief.
Oh my God.
If you can get a person to push past the anger, because anger can also be it's a feeling, it is an emotion and a valid emotion, but it also can become intellectual because you're thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking, but that's surface. You're not going into the heart. So there's some hopes, dreams, and expectations. And there's some things that you wish were different, better, or more. What are those things? If we can get up under anger and get to that, then we're starting to talk.
Wait a
And
minute.
this is
Different, better, or more?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. When we have a loss event or a grief event, our hearts and minds begin to analyze these relationships. Have you ever, I don't know, I think all of us here have dealt with loss of some sort. And what happens is we begin to, the I remember whens, like we begin to analyze these relationships. And what
Romanticize them, don't we?
yeah.
Oh my God.
And what we believe in grief recovery is that within those relationships, there are some undelivered communications. And the work that we do is to find those undelivered communications. What did you wish that you had done differently, better, or more? What did you wish you had said? For my mom, I realized through this process that I wish that I'd never seen her like that. She was the strong woman. She was superwoman. She was invincible.
Right.
This lady would go sit in chemo, and she was a water aerobics instructor, and the chemo would make her nerve be so tender to anything cold, and she would jump in that pool of water and teach. Like,
Wow.
it was insane. And so, but just so when it reached a place like your friend Ricky, where her hair had started falling out and she couldn't really teach anymore. You change physically. Like when it reached, I had never seen her like that, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have these tools. And so I didn't embrace her. I didn't jump in the hospital bed with her. I sat with her, but I wasn't like I didn't talk to her or say these things, and that is what had me stuck. Like there's a reason, there's stuff underneath the anger. And the things that I wish that I had done differently, better, or more was spend time with her, was like not necessarily avoid her because I didn't know what to do in that situation, or I didn't know how to see her in that way. Like that stuff hurts, but that's where the pain is. So another thing with this is knowing when you need help, because it gets to a place where you can't process this on your own. And you do need a professional or some type of, trained specialist to help you walk through this rainforest that we call grief.
So I hear you saying there's value in anger. Is there value?
Yeah, if it's handled correctly. Anger is it's a part of us, right? We're made of different parts. And anger, and I'm stuttering because I want to say anger that's under control, first of all.
Right, get under control.
Anger, and when it's not at a level where it's become a prison for you and it's not become a blinder for you, as long as it's not sunglasses that are coloring everything that you see, that at that point, there's a problem. Of course, there's levels to this. But the value in anger is really, it's what I call it's a warning sign. It's a symptom of something. And when you have a symptom, you go to the doctor and you run tests and you figure out what's going on, what the root cause is. But we just remain anger. And then anger becomes the jail cell, the prison. We don't go figure out what the root cause is.
Right.
It's a warning sign.
Yeah, it's true.
So
And Dr. Mo, don't you think that for healthcare professionals who are taking care of a loved one, it's hard. It's difficult because we have this health background, but this is a person here that we love.
Yeah.
And so
Yes, yes.
our safety net is to become this professional.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really not why we're in their life.
Yeah.
And
I-
so when they pass away, we say, I should have recognized that. I should, all a litany of things that we should have as
Yep.
health professionals recognize. But it's difficult to wear two hats, one
Right.
as the loved one and one as a health professional.
I
Mhm.
think
At
we
some
do it to
point,
distance ourselves
I do
from
too.
from
I do too.
emotions because we're
Mhm.
taught to try as hard as we can to be objective, right? Or
Mhm.
to be optimistic. As an oncologist, I can't just go and be like, well, I guess this is. I have to say, okay, well, what are our lessons? And let's be, continue to
Yeah.
always push for some level of optimism, no matter the circumstance. But I feel like we do it, Val, so that, and we meaning me, to create distance between ourselves and our feelings, right? Because we can't sit with them, because we can't fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
So,
find myself not even asking the questions that I would have asked
Mhm.
my patient. It's
Mm.
almost like I don't want to know.
You don't
Because
want
Yeah.
to.
That's
Yeah,
strong. That's so
Yeah.
strong.
yeah,
And
Like, I
then
wanna-
you want to get away from it. You want to
Yeah.
get away from it. You want it to go away,
yeah.
And then what we have to, when we're talking about dealing with a loved one, and I'll speak in my case from my lived experience, it's important to not allow cancer to become an identity for your loved one.
Oh, for
Ah.
yourself.
Loved
For
one.
yourself.
This
Whoa,
is wrong.
whoa, whoa.
And that's that's a big problem. You focus on the wrong thing, right? Because you're a healer, so you're trying to heal. It's beautiful, wonderful, but that works in your clinical setting, but in your home with your husband, with your parent, with your children, I don't know that they even want that version of you. I think they want
Ah,
or their husband or their mother. And I remember, and this is not even me
Ouch, ma'am.
being deep.
Ouch.
I know.
And look,
Ouch.
I can't even take credit for this because my baby brother might be watching. But I know when my father was going through, and again, I'm now got this master's degree. I'm now this grief count. Like I'm trying to do all the things correctly. I'm not in the clinical field, but I'm trying to do all the things correctly. I'm trying to research. I'm trying to, and he really started to push me away. He started to avoid me. And I remember my brother, he kind of checked me and my sister. And he was like, you know what? The moment y'all stop treating him like a patient and treat him like your father,
Wow.
he'll come back to you. You're losing relationship. He's not your patient. He's got a whole team of doctors that take good care of him. It's not your job, not your place.
Whoa, whoa.
Wow.
Saw him as my father again. And I just love my father. So yeah, you might have chemo. We're gonna go to chemo. We're gonna talk about. I was eating all the snacks at the they had a coffee machine, like it's real fancy in there.
It's so hard.
Course.
To
We're
just
talking
be a
about
patient. Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
So-
and just let him be a person. He's a person.
Just
He's
be a
not
person.
separate your disease from the person.
yeah,
It can't become an identity.
I know
And you
you.
Wow.
yeah.
caregiving too. That caregiving becomes an identity.
Yeah. Even now we struggle with when people ask us who we are. Sometimes I say I'm a cancer survivor first. Sometimes I say I'm a grandma first. Like I'm confused
Mhm.
by that. Like I don't
Yeah.
know what my identity is, and it depends on the audience.
Mhm.
Yes.
But I'm introducing myself too. So I guess where it's relevant when I'm around other cancer people, I say I'm a cancer patient. Or if I just want to get kudos, I say I'm 11-year survivor, and everybody's yay.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Right.
I do that if I have a bad day, but I don't know. I don't know what my identity is.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've recovered from that yet, or I can speak to it
Yeah.
because we're in our cancer world every day with
Yeah.
Every day. Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
I can't really separate from it. And I had a friend that didn't want my friend anymore because he said, he had lymphoma. He's like, Ricky, I don't want to talk about cancer. And you talk about cancer all the time. I'm like, well, you got to go because that's my life.
Yeah.
Bye. But I think that it is part of our identity. So how do we put it in a place? But how can we help people? We got all these beautiful breasties who are at all different phases of this struggle, but they wake up every day and they think, gosh, I have cancer, or I just got rid of cancer, or I'm just got diagnosed. Like cancer is a word,
Yeah, yep.
right?
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, there's this concept. It's not necessarily a grief recovery concept, but it's this concept between surviving and thriving, right? And I believe society teaches us, whether healthy or unhealthy, the tools it gives us teach us to survive, right? So we can survive. We can be functional. We can go to work. We can, be mothers. We can do all the things that life requires us to do. We can go to our doctor's appointments. We can deal with our treatments. We can handle all of that. But we miss that place of thriving because we're stuck in the place of surviving.
Wow.
So it goes back to the focus and the decision that this cancer will not be my identity completely, and it will not define me. Even though this is what I see, this is what I'm around, I am still a person. Like, I'm a person with a cancer diagnosis.
Mm.
I am not.
Yeah, Ricky, you a dancer. You're a cook.
There
You
you
are
go.
a marketing
Get
mogul.
back
You
to-
are a
yeah,
grandmother. You are a
Yeah.
sailor. What else you do?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She's a beach baby.
Beach bum. I'm a beach bum. I do say that.
So, I mean,
Oh gosh.
we forget the power of choice when we're dealing with these grief.
Say that again. Say
Oh my
that
God,
again.
I gotta type that one down.
Man, we forget the power of choice. And again, I cannot take credit for this. I call her Auntie Lois, but Lois Hall was my trainer. And she reminded me, we always have choices. And the power of choice, like we wake up each day and there's some things that we get to choose, some things we can't choose. There, of course, we deal with this loss of control. But when we're dealing with the loss of control and even trying to regain it, we forget what are the things that I can control. I can control what I do with the time that I have left. I can control how I engage with, given whatever my situation is, what do I do with, what can I do? We focus on what I can't do and get lost in that sea of can'ts. But what can I do? What can I do? And am I taking full advantage, of the cans as I accept the can'ts? I'm not in denial. I'm not unaware of them, but I can't let them define me either. Because
I used to say I'm choosing life.
Yeah.
So, because when I got sick, I did a lot of crazy things. I quit my job. I quit my business partners. I divorced my husband of 30 years. I sold my house in the suburbs. I moved to the beach, all while I was on chemo. So that was crazy. I don't recommend that. But everyone kept saying, are you crazy? Like, have you left? Shouldn't you wait a minute? Like, can you get over the drug thing? Whatever. And I said, I'm choosing life. I knew I had to find my peace. I had to learn that my peace is non-negotiable. And I knew the only way I was going to find this peace was to make these decisions. But I used to say, I'm choosing life. I'm choosing me. And I had never done that before. And so it freaked everybody out around me because I had always chosen everybody.
Yeah.
But I think that gave me this sense of freedom that cancer gave me freedom.
Yeah.
Ambition.
Yeah.
So it was a choice to look at it that way too, because
Yeah.
that's the choice part, right? Because what do you say to people who are stuck? Like, what gets you unstuck? How do you get unstuck?
Yeah. All grieving events, grief situations are unique. And understanding that, we say we all feel grief at 100%. So I guess I'm getting to, first of all, not comparing loss. Don't compare.
It's the thief of joy, isn't it? It is the thief of joy. Comparison.
Yes, it is.
Comparison, it hits us on so many levels, and especially what I would say as women, but we deal with comparison. And but what we teach in grief recovery is that we don't compare losses. So it's not, I can't have my feelings because someone else is dealing, with a worse cancer situation than me, or where, someone else got this diagnosis, but I got that diagnosis. we both feel this at 100%. So getting rid of comparison and really, like Ricky said, finding that silver lining and really deciding and choosing, like, this is my situation. This is where I'm at. Will I continue to just survive, or do I thrive here? And if thriving is the decision that you make, what will cause me to thrive? For Ricky, it was moving. For Ricky, it was creating that place of peace, for her to be able to heal, that place of mental and emotional freedom, for her to be able to even be in a mental space that she will heal. So there's that. And then finally, I would say the hardest part is communicating that
Yes.
It is.
to those that you love.
Wow.
Ricky was clear on what she needed to survive this.
Even though people tell me I was crazy.
They will. They will. And so we do have to deal with the fact that I'm not, like, delivery. I'm not here to hurt you. But the thing with the diagnosis, with just like Ricky was saying, the thing with that is you realize there's a loss of time, and that changes your perspective.
Wow.
That changes the game.
Yes.
So now you're like, oh no, like it almost brings clarity, right? Because you're not clouded by your responsibilities, your obligations, whether they're obligations that you've, like, created, or obligations that, like, there's all, like, we don't give our best yes always. And it's hard to get out of those situations until you're dealing with a grief event, like this. And now it's kind of like, oh no, this is what I need. Like, I have to focus on me now. It's life or death. Like, I have to choose me now.
It does
So when
clarify.
you choose you, figure out what that looks like, get that clarity, then communicate to others what you need and what you don't need.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we glamorize the thing we lost.
We do.
And I had to help some of my patients, the spouses might have cheated on them or other things during chemo, and one lady, she came in and she was sad, and I said, look at you. She said, what? I said, you look like you lost about 180, maybe 200 pounds.
Mhm.
And she said, what you mean? I looked at the empty chair next to her and I said, and she said, I never looked at it that way. She said, I sure did. And she said, I just finally decided that, if he was going to do that to me while I was on chemo, then it wasn't going to stop when I was off.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It puts things in perspective, and having that perspective conversation. I always talk about this with my clients, because oftentimes if we look at, this pen tip, maybe this tip right here, we're so close to it. You see how we always focus right here?
Yeah.
And that's all we see, right? Because I just focus on it. But I always talk about, when we have this perspective conversation, is to zoom out.
Yeah.
Like, you literally have to take a step back and zoom out. And when I'm right here, you see this. But when I'm back here, you see colors, you see pink, you see this one. Like, you can see so much more when you zoom out. And then your mind and heart are open to these other perspectives and opportunities. Because, the one thing that you see might not be the thing that you really need to be focused on and basing all your decisions around. But if you can't see nothing else.
Yeah.
If I say step up the ladder, take a step up the ladder, right?
That's it.
Because when you're down on the ground, you can't see anything. When you step up the ladder, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I like it, Ricky. You can take it. You can take what I use so many words, and you nail it.
We're putting them in the chat. We're putting some of your quotes into the chat on Facebook.
Good. Dr. Mo, you said something that really has me thinking about how do we help other people? I think now what makes me sad at this moment is that there is someone at home that's experiencing sadness.
Profound, yep.
Profound
For Mother's
sadness.
Day, right now, for Mother's Day, some people are
Right.
right now crying over not having their first.
Right.
Their mom.
And there is nobody.
First cancer.
Right.
Yeah.
First cancer, loss of someone, loss of a friendship, loss of a job, loss of a car.
Yeah.
Loss is loss. It is very subjective.
Yeah.
But what makes me sad is, and I say this all the time, even, in our support group Saturday, there's a small group of us that are fortunate to have this conversation in this safe space
Yeah.
where people can finish our sentences or at least begin our sentences. But there is somebody right now, it makes me sad, at home that does not have this luxury, that tomorrow they're going to wake up the same way they went to sleep, sad. And if we don't begin to tell the story, wherever we are, in our churches, in the hair salons, wherever, people will not know that there is a day after this. Weeping endures for a night, but our nights can be long if we don't understand that joy comes in the morning. And there's a lot of people.
You took my question. My question was this: how can we and should we expect joy? If grief is natural, how do you tell somebody who had cancer that they should expect and anticipate joy?
You should.
Get there.
Yeah. Because after it rains, you see the rainbow. After winter becomes spring. That's life. That's the evolution.
Yeah.
And if a leaf can die and drop in the ground and the seed drops, and then later on in spring, you see the flower, if that can happen to I call it inanimate object, then certainly and surely it can happen to us. But we got to spread this message of hope. And I don't think we always do that. And so that's why suicide is at an all-time high for African-American people. We never thought about killing ourselves. We never thought about any of these things. But we're not spreading the good news.
Yeah.
That there will be joy after this.
Yeah. Awareness is key for sure.
Yeah.
And also something you said, Ms. Val, that was really important to me was safety. There aren't a lot of safe places for us to have these conversations, and that's why they're not happening, And the thing about when I have a grief group or anything is that creation of safety where people can bring their whole selves and not one part that they think the universe is going to accept. Where people can bring their whole selves and not be, we say, no judging, criticizing, or fixing. Because that's another thing. When somebody's trying to share their hearts with you and your first go-to is to try and fix it, that causes people to withdraw. So why are these conversations not happening? And it's because we have to teach others, in addition to the knowledge and the tools that we've talked about today, we have to teach them how to say things like, I can only imagine how that feels versus I get it or I've been there.
Yeah.
We have to give people language.
You have to just say that you don't understand. You have to just
Right.
And I don't think we do that. We say, well, I felt that, or I can get how you feel, but we don't. As to your point, when
you can't.
Grief is different. So even though we had the same experience, and I think we can relate in so many ways as breasties, but still, everybody has a different experience. Like that breastie the other night who made a bad decision and now is sick again, or the breastie who is just mad about being young and being sick. So I think no, I can't really relate to her, and I shouldn't judge her how she feels.
And so phrases like when somebody's speaking with you and sharing their heart, being emotionally honest, sometimes it's just thank you for sharing. And then if they're comfortable, a big hug. Or you just sit. And things like if somebody's crying, don't be so quick to and I have to tell my clients, because society is very big on, the whole hush, hush, hush. But sometimes you gotta let people have their moment. I'm not a natural crier either, Ricky. I heard you say that earlier. So if I'm in a place where I'm finally able to have tears, child, leave me alone. Let me be.
That's right. Let me have my moment. Crying. Yep.
Don't start rubbing on me, because when you start rubbing on me, now you're pulling me out of that moment.
Yeah.
And you're distracting me. So I feel like when we give people language that will create safety, they will draw near, and then we can have more of these conversations. There's
Wow.
also a thing I have to share about feeling heard. Well, a big thing in the grief recovery method in the process is that we listen to people. We call ourselves big hearts with ears, but there's some power in feeling heard. I'm sure we've all had these conversations where they're talking,
Mhm.
but it's like, you don't hear me,
Right.
because I'm either trying
Mhm.
to think of my comeback or I'm either trying to fix you, but I'm not just sitting and listening. I'm not just being a big heart with ears, but I'm not just hearing you. Oftentimes, grievers just want to be heard. They don't even want you to try to fix it. They don't even really want a solution. And they don't often want food. We're always trying to feed them. But
Yeah. That's
but
right.
just to sit
Yeah,
in this.
sometimes the me too is no good, right? And we're so quick to, oh, me too, oh, mine
Yeah.
is, we
Yes,
start to compare and measure and,
Right,
that's
right,
you
right.
know,
oh,
I have the
mine was
same
and
worse.
it's
I had such and
Yeah.
such. Hmm.
yes, and it causes people to shut down emotionally.
Yeah.
So Gwen,
Mm.
what's the difference between grief recovery counseling
Mhm.
and therapy? Like why, if
So
you're seeing a therapist, why is it also maybe good to see a grief counselor?
yeah, so definitely they're complementary for sure. I'll make sure I want to say that up front. But therapy is actually more targeted towards guiding you to your own conclusions, right? So
Mhm.
they're gonna allow you to speak. It's gonna be a lot of, so what I'm hearing is, so what I think I heard you say is, and you confirm yay or nay. So what they're doing is causing you to kind of, we go get beneath that surface, get
Mhm.
underneath the umbrella and dig around. So they're perhaps like tour guides, you know,
Mhm.
and then they'll have tools and interventions and things of that nature to help you along the way, depending on the type of therapist. So grief recovery is a very structured, grief recovery method is a structured process. It's a 7-week program. And we go through, first of all, like week 1 and 2, we're literally the things that I talked to you about today. We're talking about these myths, and we're really changing your attitude, your mindset, and everything that you've been taught as it relates to grief and dealing with grief. We challenge you. We
Mm.
in a loving, understanding way. We don't ever just criticize or fix, but we challenge what society has taught you thus far. Then we offer you, this definition that grief is normal and natural. Like replace the loss, don't feel bad. Those are myths. There's
Mhm.
a whole range of emotions. So we're opening up your mind and heart. A lot of the work that grief recovery does too is we get you out of your head and into your heart. And so,
Wow.
in addition to that, in addition to kind of those offerings of these new techniques, these new tools, these new definitions, this new perspective and mindset, then we go into some deep work, some deep emotional work. I mean, we do what we call the loss history graph, where we look at our life through the sum of our losses. And it is some hard work. We go from like birth to present. And we look at every loss that you've ever had. But
Oh
it's
my
so hard,
gosh.
but it's
No.
so powerful because you
Wow.
learn patterns. You learn this is where I lost trust. Oh, this is the point where I lost hope. This is the point where I lost my faith. Like
Hmm.
it's an outline. So it's a structured, organized program. And this
Wow.
thing, when you lay what we call it out, I need to get one. I've been
All
saying this
right,
for,
Gwen.
but
You coming to
often
the farm. You coming to the farm and we're gonna do this. So we're gonna
I
That's
do
know,
it
right.
guys, we're gonna do this,
with
Mo.
the
And
breath.
that's
We
all.
got to.
it's so good. And then and so, but
Mm.
oftentimes all of our experiences become a rubber band, right? So it's a jumbled up rubber band, and it's like this. What grief recovery does is it helps you tease that thing apart. And not only are you learning about yourself, now you're beginning to understand, you're going deeper than this is what happened to me. But when it
Mm.
happened to me, this is where I stopped growing emotionally. Like
Wow.
this is where I stopped loving again. This is where, I decided that, we call it these false belief systems. And some of them, all of them aren't false. Some of the belief systems are very real, but they served you at the latter part, the beginnings of your timeline. You're 0 to 15. The
Wow.
30-year-old
Wow.
don't need those belief systems. It don't work for her no more. So it
Woo.
causes you to really look at and analyze all of, y'all see how excited I am. I love this stuff.
Listen.
But when you get to see it laid out in an organized way, and you can really understand, not only because most of us are aware of what our foundations are and what our belief systems are, things like, even where we lost confidence, but things like people aren't safe. That came from somewhere. Let's figure out where it came.
Wow.
So it's different because it's very structured. And there's, you know, a lot of like deep emotional work that we do as it relates to these exercises and worksheets. And what we say in a nutshell is that it's an action program.
Yeah.
You know, like we can't do this for you. We can guide you through it. We facilitate you through the method. We're big hearts with ears all the way. But when you do this work, you learn about yourself. But the thing is, again, power in not having to do it alone. Because society teaches us that everything we do, we have to do alone.
Wow.
Wow.
So that new knowledge. And look, the lost history graph is only like week 3 or 4. We still got work to do after that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Loving it.
We need more of this, and we need to do a grief weekend, Mo, at the farm.
Yeah.
We
I
do.
love
And I think, you know what, and now it all makes sense too, because when we get this cancer thing, there's a lot of other stuff going on in our
It
lives.
is.
Everything else.
And you know, I really believe my cancer was caused by stress. I
Me
was
too.
grief before I got cancer,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That was like, that I wasn't even dealing with. So this could help you deal with. Woo.
Yeah, I love it because
Oh,
it gets on life after the diagnosis and how things change. But there was life before, and there was stuff before,
Yeah.
and there was
So, let us know, Dr. Mo. I'm signing
Listen.
up.
Yeah, we got to do it. We'll get Gwen to do it. People want to know how to get this training and
Yeah, I
expertise.
know, Gwen. How do they
and-
find you, babe? How do we give them?
Yeah.
How do we send?
So, yeah, so I am on all the social media, Gwendolyn J. Jones, and the website is asafeplacenc.org. So if you just Google a safe place, my husband and I have the business that we call it A Safe Place, the Emotional Wellness Institute. So that's kind of where we are. We're located in Greenville, North Carolina, but we can do this globally. We can provide the method virtually. We do have an office if you prefer to be seen in person. And we also we can offer it in a one-on-one, and we can offer it in a group set.
A safe place, what?
asafeplacenc.org is the website. And the business name is A Safe Place Emotional Wellness Institute.
Wow.
asafeplacenc.org.
And they can email me directly through the website, and they can reach me there. My information's there. Email address is all there on the site. And they can also go to gwendolynjjones.com. That's kind of they can learn more about me. And I have a book that I wrote. It's called Major Fit. They can get that there. So.
Can you come back?
Absolutely.
I think we need to do this, we need a therapy session a couple times,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
But
Oh, man.
so great.
This is so good.
Dr. Call.
Oh,
Oh my
let's
God.
go.
Wow. So thank
Yeah.
you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank
so
you.
glad that you came today. And we will make these resources. Valerie Blackwell's online, and she's saying we need a part 2 and 3. Okay. But and thanks for everybody who's commenting here. We'll try to address some of your comments. But I think that I think that my biggest takeaway is that it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
To grieve. It's okay. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel.
The feel. I love it. It's normal and natural.
Normal and natural. And
Yeah.
we allow ourselves to do that.
Yeah.
So you guys reach out to Gwen, if you can't find her, find me, and how to find me, Ricky at touchbbca.org. And I'm so glad you came on, Val.
Me too. Oh man, this has been a blessing.
And we'll do more of this. Where are you, Mo, to say? We hope this has been relatable, reliable, and real.
Yes.
Every week on the Doctor Within. So next week we're going to talk about resources for patients. So thank you for today, and we will see you soon. Resty love.
Resty love.
Rest.
Thank you.
I love it. I'm giving hugs. I'm a hugger.
We love you.
Love y'all.
Bye.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
I have to
You
take a
answer.
call.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, somebody gonna call me.
know.
Listen, this has been relatable. It's been reliable. It's
There
been
you
real.
go.
Breasty love. Y'all know it. See
I
y'all.
love it.
I can't say it like, I
Love
love
you, Dr. Mo.
Love
Okay,
y'all.
cool.
you.
Bye-bye.